Hey everyone, this is the third part of the Eighth Continent. Last time I was looking at the PDA, and I'm just going to flip through them. If you really want to read them, you should just go through yourself. I don't think I have enough energy to go through them all, because that's a lot of entries to read out loud. But I'm just gonna flip through, and if you're interested, you can read them. But really, if you want to experience this fully, you should go download the app, and there's a free version and there's a paid version that doesn't have any ads, so you have options there. So basically it seems like the character's dad, Morgan's dad, is investigating a sample, and his data is getting more and more mangled. So that's it. Okay, and we'll keep going. Finish looking at your stuff, time to move on. Father Hoskins slings you a pouch of hack metal, what passes for currency post-end day. You'll need some pocket money on your travels, no doubt. You thank him, glancing around the bunker for anything else you might need. You should go and raid the shed outside, Morgan. There may be a few more essentials of use there. Good idea, you say. You cannot load yourself down like a pack horse, but you're sure that Mom stored some emergency provisions out there amongst the rubbish. You go and take a look. So if you've ever played the game Bejeweled, it's kind of like this game when you're hacking, or when you're collecting stuff. And there's a timer. Found it. Under a pile of shattered bricks and concrete that have breached the shed wall, you discover Mom's emergency stash. Canned food. +5 canned food. This is a valuable find indeed. Remember, look in your inventory to see what you've acquired. You head back to the bunker. You know, Father Hoskins says, adjusting the straps on your backpack, your father can pretty well look after himself. It's you I'm worried about. You manage to smile of sorts. He'd do the same for me. You remember the day he came back for you as you tried to flee the crumbling house. He already has. Father Hoskins lets his hand rest on your shoulder. Even if I wanted to, I can't stop you. But at least wait a while before you go. You step toward the door. There's no time to be wasted, Father. Father Hoskins falls back into his chair, panting with the exertion. Keaton is due any minute. He was coming today anyway. He might be able to help. You've met Keaton a handful of times, both before and after End Day. He's an old acquaintance of your dad's, but never seems to stop by for long. He seems a practical man, quietly intelligent and forever intent of purpose. He could be worth waiting for, and yet it feels like it's time to leave. Yeah, I'll wait for Keaton. Father Hoskins sighs with relief, but the furrow that appeared across his brow when you told him what happened still lingers. In the silence, you think to add, while I'm gone, if they return, don't let them come looking for me. I will be back when I can be. Father Hoskins nods gravely. You feel yourself tense up with frustration. It would be a perfect time to leave because, outside, you can see that the ashfall is relenting slightly. It is little comfort to consider that you've had a moment to rest before the journey ahead. The shadows of half-standing buildings are beginning to re-emerge, revealing again the wasteland that was once London. And then the landscape gives up another image, this one more palpable. Keaton, hooded and on horseback, approaches through the dim. Wow, he's interesting. Moments later, he is inside, his hands gloved in heavy metallic gauntlets, working to brush the ash from his shoulders and cloak. Only then does he stop and see the expressions on your faces. To give your family a chance, you must explain everything, but do you need to mention your father's last words? I mean, we've known Keaton for a while, so I think it's okay, maybe. Any detail could be crucial, explain everything. Upon mentioning your father's last words, eighth continent, Keaton's expression alters, brows furrowing. I've known your father a long time. It's not like him to believe in fairy tales. You continue explaining what you did after you became conscious again. Chapter 3. To this trade station. As Keaton listens, his eyes dart from Father Hoskins to you, reading and absorbing every nuance. He is clean-shaven and without wrinkles. His eyebrows are flecked with gray, giving off the sense of unassuming wisdom. You tell Keaton that you intend to go firstly to the trade station to see if any word of your family's disappearance has reached the nearest market settlement. Silently, you wonder if, from there, you will end up traveling west somehow, beyond where America used to be, to where believers would say the eighth continent surfaced in the middle of the Pacific. Is that all you know? He says finally. You nod. Be careful, Keaton warns. A little way to the east there is a gang of brigands. They are avoidable if you take the old underground for a short section. You thank him for the advice. In all honesty, I don't think you should go at all, Keaton says. But I see this is not something open to debate. The least I can offer is to guide you for a few days. Yeah, I'll accept his guidance. There's no time to be wasted, Keaton explains. You bid both Father Hoskins farewell once more, Keaton having made arrangements for him to look after his horse until he comes back. It is with a clenched, pent-up need to get moving that you depart. When you come to the fallen library, you'd raided it for books in the early days, Keaton moves toward the old underground tunnels. Your father always said keep away from the underground whenever possible. Since End Day, nothing's been stable, and many quakes are still frequent. Getting crushed a mile from home would seem a bitter defeat. But Keaton seems to know what he's doing, and he warns against approaching the brigands in what is now a lawless world. Meanwhile, you argue that if they are nearby, they may know something of your family's disappearance. Yeah, I mean, I've decided to wait for him, and I've decided to take his guidance, so I might as well do as he advises. Will you proceed carefully through the underground as advised? Sure. -5 body. Picking your way carefully through the silent, dripping underground past the crushed carcass of a tube train is an alarming experience. You scramble up a staircase of rubble and breathe a sigh of relief when you emerge on the far side of the library building. Oh wait, that was -5 mind, not body. Beautifully concealed here, you spot the brigands of which Keaton spoke. There are 6 of them, men and women dressed in dusty, filthy clothes and slumped in the plastic-formed seats of a bus shelter. You are glad that you did not run into them on their terms. +1 mind. At first they don't even seem to process what's happening, but from nowhere Keaton lets out a fearsome war cry, striking down the first brigand, who falls like a sack of potatoes. The others freeze momentarily before moving toward their attacker with faltering steps. Forming a semicircle, they appear to be getting themselves into a position to retaliate. One of them says something, another argues, but their formation is already broken. Suddenly, 3 break into a full run in opposite directions. 2 others, both women, move to pick up their injured and groaning comrade from the floor. In seconds, they have fled into the invisibility of the ash drift. Keaton lowers his fists, but as he comes close to you, you see that the fire still burns in his eyes. You are safe for now. That's okay. You've barely left your front door, and already the perils of the waste have made themselves apparent. Already they have taken their toll on your body and mind. Your body and mind are still in good shape, but you must keep an eye on your constitution if you are to survive the dangers ahead. Your body and mind scores can be topped up when you have aid. Provisions can help your body. Things like boiled sweets can boost your mind score. Keaton's ragged breath slowly starts to even out, and he glances at you. Do you ask why he attacked, explaining that there is no need? Or do you congratulate Keaton for dispensing justice. I mean, I'll ask, cause I don't know. If I can ask in a non-offensive way, I don't think it's dangerous. -3, mind. Why did you do that, you say? I can look after myself. Keaton looks at you, first amusedly, then doing his best to quash his superior smile. There's no doubt that you're your father's child, that much is certain, but I thought you could use a hand, at least while I am around. He looks off into the distance, the fleeing brigands now mere specks. You'll meet far worse than those in your travels. Your time for combat will soon come. All the more reason for me to be allowed to fight my own battles? -6. Mind. Oh. Keaton nods slowly, as if calculating something. I know it's hard, kid, but we'll find your family. And you realize that there's no use in taking out your woes on him. The man is simply trying to help. Gratitude has a place here, if your anger and anguish will make a room. Where did you learn to fight? Keaton asks. Will you explain where you got your fighting skills? Sure. +1, mind. How you learnt to fight? Suddenly you are smiling. Every morning, 5 days a week, your dad pulled you from your bunk for combat training. Your father's routines filled the days of that first year under the cloud. Combat training was one of your father's routine that you actually enjoyed. He'd managed to find several books on the subject of hand-to-hand combat, including an instructional pamphlet on kickboxing, a training book on karate, and a tattered non-fiction book called Street Fighting Through the Ages. But what ended up being just as useful was the stash of combat cards he found while scavenging one day. As a young kid, you'd played the old card game a bunch of times, but you'd never thought that combat cards would actually serve a real purpose. Not until you noticed that each card had a section that explained how the move was carried out in real life. Kind of a bit of covert learning for the kids. These instructions help you learn the moves. Continue. Whenever you found a combat card in your travels, buried in a drawer in a crushed house, stuffed under a sofa, in the remnants of a family's games cupboard, you knew what the next morning's training was going to be. Not that it had always been as easy as that. Neither of you had been natural combatants in the early days. You learnt together, sparring as the sun eked out the best dawn it could muster through a maze of gases and ash. It was fun. Dad rarely talked of when you'd ever have to use the skills you honed together, instead repeating vague dogmatic sentiments about the importance of preparedness and the transferability of mental and physical discipline. It didn't take much of an imagination in this new, broken world to consider why you both may one day need such skills. Knew there was more to your dad than his brains, Keaton laughs. So you say that you learnt a little of all these styles, but which did you like best? This is an interesting question. Time to choose your fighting style. Look at the kickboxing deck, look at the karate deck, look at the street fighting deck. Let's just go through them. So the starter has a forward jab, front kick, shin block, roundhouse. Look at the karate deck. Palm heel strike, side kick, close-handed block, hook kick, street fighting, Dole 1-2, boot in the chops, wuss out, flying kick. I think the karate deck looks the most balanced, because attack 2, defense 2, attack 5, defense 2, attack 0, defense 4, hook kick, attack 8, defense -1. Yeah, I'll choose that one. Fancy yourself a Bruce Lee, huh? You cannot help but laugh. You don't exactly cut a formidable figure, especially up against Keaton, but then you shuffle on your feet, suddenly a little embarrassed. Go on then, Keaton says. Let's see what you can do. You move slowly into a sideways stance, adopting the Renoji Dachi, knees bent and feet positioned carefully at 90 degrees, the shape of a letter L. Okay, Keaton says, seemingly genuinely impressed. You weren't joking. There's nothing for it. Time to spar. You smile, and just as he lowers himself into his own, somewhat personalized position of combat readiness, you say, Keaton, the gauntlets? He looks down at his studded, shining metallic gloves. Ah, a little time-consuming to remove, I'm afraid. Don't worry, and he winks. I won't hurt you. Now that you have selected your combat cards, you can view them at any time in your PDA. Time to see how well you remember those old moves. So I get to attack first. Let's see. Yeah, let's do the sidekick. So Morgan's faster. I'm faster, strike first. He takes 1 damage, I don't take any damage, and then I take 5 damage. Because I'm too slow. Okay. See, they're doing the grapple, so they're defending. See, can I get any health? No. Maybe I'll do the hook kick. Well, yeah, he takes 5 damage. I take 0, and then I'll just do the palm heel strike because it's just like a basic. So no one takes any damage. Sweep kick. Attack 1, deal 5 damage with a takedown if at least as fast as me. So I want to be faster, but I don't have any oh, I have this, that's fast. So I'll do this, and I block the attack, and neither of us take damage. I'll do the cover up. Gentle cuff. Speed fast. I'll do the side kick. Palm heel strike. No one takes any damage. Grapple. Let's do the hook kick. Five damage to Keaton. I'm gonna block. Oh, I'm too slow. Okay. Gentle cuff. Let's do the side kick. Yay, I win. Okay. Beaten Keaton. Win your first bout of fisticuffs. Keaton thumps his hand into the dusty ground where you have him pinned. Time out, kid. You cannot help but issue a little triumphant whoop as you move aside and watch Keaton brush himself down, shaking his head. He's chuckling now. You don't go easy on a guy, do you? You slap him on the back, a puff of ash rising from his jacket. Maybe next time, eh? Keaton straightens up. Okay, for that display, I reckon you've earned a little tuition. The master becomes the student and all that. Want me to show you the throw I did? The one that was so ineffectual when I tried it? It would be good to have another move in your repertoire. Will you let Keaton show you the new move? Will you instead use the time to change your fighting specialism, or will you explain that you'd rather get going? Yeah, show me the new move. Oh, -4 body plus 3 mind. Keaton asked you to throw a jab at him, and a split second later, you're eating ash on the deck. You turn inside the attack, see, Keaton says, acting it out. Again, above you. While you slowly get to your feet, he's saying, after you've seized their arm, you pull them down, using their weight and momentum against them, and then you pull up their hindmost leg to help them on their way. Smooth as you like. Bang. Yaritama throw. Attack 0, defense 4, speed medium, rest 4 rounds. Return 100 of opponent's damage, a throwdown, if you're at least as fast as your opponent. It is a tiring few minutes, and you find yourself on the ground, wincing in pain more than a few times. But it pays off. Soon enough, you've learnt the Yaratama throw. Next time someone tries to hit you instead, they're not going to know what hit them. Thanking Keaton, trying not to limp too much on account of your dead leg, you suggest that it's time to leave. No more said. The raw meaning of affable brawling foregoing talk. You move eastward once more. For half an hour you progress across the rubble. Your progress across the rubble is good. The ash drift never more than a mere tiresome distraction. The terrain its usual draining, demanding self. You try to hold the faces of your family in your thoughts, as if by doing so you will stop them slipping away from you, stop them being lost forever. It has become clear to you at last. They are long gone, and finding them is going to take every shred of determination that you have. But soon questions are crowding into your mind. You realize that having Keaton with you is a major resource, one that you must not squander while he is still accompanying you. Who knows when he'll have to leave you? What do you want to ask him? Who do you think would want to snatch my family? How well do you know my father anyway? What do you know about the 8th continent? Where can I get some more stuff? While the first 3 questions are interesting, I don't think that he'll actually know he'll know the answer to the second one. I don't know how useful it'll be. So I'm gonna ask about stuff, because I am shallow like that. -3 mind. Keaton sniggers a little at this, then negotiates a low crumbling wall, hopping deftly onto it, and jumping down on the other side. You just loaded up on Kit, kid? You want more? But you don't answer immediately, because you have noticed something on the wall in front of you. Bloated and scarred at the edges, but only scratched and stained in places across the surface of the wall, you can see the remnants of some strange picture. Little bears dressed in matching football kits. Against a once bright blue sky, the cartoon bears slide and jump for the ball, which floats balloon-like and impossibly away. Their tiny limbs are thrown out in simple enthusiasm, their smiles perched beneath button noses, as the elusive ball is repeated again and again, like a dancing metronome across the replicated pattern. At the far edge, one of the bears is warped, split in half and sagging where the amateur wallpaper layer couldn't quite match up the strips. Some child's bedroom wallpaper. You never had the posh sort like this, only ever got the plain stuff. Lucky lad. Keaton has turned to face you, and he's holding out his hand. He clears his throat, his voice softer now. Let's get to the trade station. You can get all manner of things there, kid. You take hold of his hand and slowly clamber over the collapsed wall of some unknown lost child's bedroom. Oh, I don't get to ask about Dad anymore? Okay, who do you think... What do you know about the 8th continent? -1 body, +1 mind. Even as you ask the question, you trip on a loop of metal, the uncoiled and ragged wire of a collapsed fence snagging at the skin of your shin, but Keaton lunges out to catch you before you fall. The 8th continent, Keaton laughs, still holding your arm and looking searchingly at you, a slight smile diffusing across his features. You're a believer, then. For a long time, no one had even known what caused N-Day, had been too tied up in surviving to really care in any case. But then things had settled. Life had recommenced, albeit for a select few, and albeit at a state altogether more savage. People began to talk, surmise, reason. Travelers from other places, Europe and beyond, began to arrive with stories of their own, and once it was commonly held that it had been a super eruption, people began to wonder, what happened to all that magma? I know nothing, kid, except that if such a place existed, it would be the Promised Land, a place of dreams. Letting go of your arm, he stares off toward the west for a moment, as if by doing so he could catch a glimpse of that imagined new landmass, somewhere halfway across the globe. I also know that it's less of a question of if the place exists than one of how you'd get there if it did. You trudge on in silence. What now? How do you know my father, anyway? +2 mind. Keaton allows a smile to crease the corners of his mouth, glancing sideways at you as he does so. Your father and I are old friends, older than all of this. Keaton's gauntleted hand waves through the air, gesturing at the desolate landscape, sharp, polished knuckles catching the light. We studied together. He was working on his first doctorate on animal cells when we met, and I was doing a mere undergraduate degree in, what was it? Environmental science. I never finished. He chortled lightly, briefly. But we were young men at large at university here, in London. We had a time of it. It is difficult to truly enjoy such reminiscences, warming as they are, for they feel too much like remembering someone who has died. Instead, you ask, have you worked together since? No, Keaton says, lips pursed a little. We rather drifted, I'm afraid. Our lives trod different paths. It took the end of the world to bring us back together. You recall Dad telling you about the day he ran into Keaton, the first survivor they'd all seen in weeks, and lo and behold, an old friend. It had been the first time your dad had laughed in months. Indeed, for days afterward, he'd hardly been able to get over the sheer luck of the thing. Do you want to converse further? Sure. Who do you think would want to snatch my family? Plus one mind. Keaton shakes his head sadly, crunches over a glittering puddle of shattered glass, the remnants of a shop front, someone's livelihood. It's very hard to say who took them. There are disorganized gangs of brigands, not unlike the ones we've already encountered, who have an interest in taking hostages and extricating hack or resources. But from what you say, they wouldn't have been capable of such a clean strike. He sighs, which suggests that we're dealing with some larger enterprise. You look off to the horizon, at least giving yourself some imaginary distance from this painful thought. You mean, like a criminal organization? Keaton coughs slightly, his throat sounding dry. There are no criminals in a lawless world. Perhaps some distant faction with some objective unknown to us. Perhaps your father said the wrong thing to the wrong person. Or maybe someone found out about your dad's brain, wanted to make use of it. It was so easy to forget that your dad was a respected biochemist, that he had a long line of publications and a ward before he gave it all up. Perhaps on one of his excursions he ran into someone. Do you want to ask someone else? No, you've talked enough. All you want to do is to get to the trade station. I think I'm going to stop here. So I'm going to continue this in part 4.